Hello, my name is Braden, and today I'm going to talk about Season 6, Episode 10 of Better Call Saul entitled Nippy. I'm going to talk about my theories and expectations for the episode and ultimately see if they're right or wrong. Now, there's not going to be any casting spoilers until later in the video, and I will specify when those occur, so you'll have plenty of warning to click off or pause the video if you don't want those spoilers. My first theory is that the episode will open with a Gene cold open. If you recall, in the first episode of the season, it opened with a BB-era shot of Saul Goodman's house. And now that we are in that timeline currently, I think it'd be wise to go back to Gene, sort of continue that storyline and build up hype for what I think many of us assume will be the storyline that will follow at the close of the series. My second theory is that in some way, shape, or form, it's going to be revealed that Saul Goodman actually worked with Gus. Now, this might not be a face-to-face encounter. It might not even be an employment like Walt had with Saul Goodman. But I think it's going to be revealed that Saul Goodman had a role in convincing Gus to work with Walt and Jesse. If you recall in Breaking Bad, when Gus and Walt had that first meeting, Gus really shot him down. He said, "You and I are not alike at all." He said, "You can never trust a junkie." He didn't, and he agreed not. He said he wasn't going to work with them. But then the next day, he suddenly agreed to work with Walt. So I've always wondered why the sudden change. Like the day after, you just said all these things. You gave the perfect reason why not to work with Walt and Jesse. Yet the next day, you just flipped. And there was a scene in Breaking Bad where we saw Gale talk with Gus, and he was pretty much like, "This meth is so good, you have to hire this guy." But I've always sort of wondered if there was more to it than that, and I think it's going to be revealed that Saul Goodman played a bigger role in convincing Gus to work with Walt than we thought. And as we all know, Saul loves money, so of course it makes sense, that he'd try to earn as much money as possible in any way that he can. My next theory is sort of a simple one. I think that we will get a glimpse of Jimmy. I think that mask of Saul Goodman will slip off at some point. We're going to get probably what I assume to be a very somber scene with Jimmy peeking out. My next theory sort of ties into my previous one, and it might be the way that we get to see the mask of Saul Goodman slip off, in that I think that Kim will appear in the next episode. The way that the previous episode ended sort of seemed like we might not see Kim again, but I think as many of us think, we probably will. But I'm sure some people might assume that it might not be till the end of the series, but I think that having Kim interact with BB-era Saul Goodman is almost too good of an opportunity for the writers to pass up. Because Kim knows Saul Goodman, but she doesn't know really how far he's fallen, how much, as Peter Gould would say, Jimmy has sort of flattened himself out to be a cartoon character now that we see in this Saul Goodman. And I think having Kim interact with him like that would be so tragic and sad. And I think that would be the way that we see that mask of Saul Goodman slip off. So now I'm going to get into some casting news. So if you've avoided those and don't want that to be spoiled, then click away right now. Thanks for watching. So as we know, Carol Burnett has been announced to guest star as this mysterious character, Marion. And this theory is pretty simple in that I don't think that she will appear in this episode. But with that said, I think she's going to appear in the Gene timeline. So if it does open with Gene, then I guess there's the possibility of her appearing. But I think that Marion is going to be a central figure in the Gene timeline in some way. So I don't think she's going to appear in this episode. My final theory also involves casting news. So again, if you want to avoid casting, do not watch this part. It was announced previously that Walt and Jesse will appear in Better Call Saul, and I think this is the episode. Michelle McLaurin, who directed the most episodes of Breaking Bad, has returned to direct this episode. And I just think all the evidence suggests that this is going to be the episode. But the way I think that they are going to be introduced is going to be a bit different than I think some people are expecting. I sort of anticipate that the way we see Walt and Jesse is sort of going to be a flip, similar to how we see Saul Goodman in Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad. In that, in Breaking Bad, we see Saul Goodman as this comic relief, one-dimensional character, and that's it. he's not the main focus of the story, so he's just sort of seen as this clown. So now that we see Walt and Jesse in this story, they're not going to be the main focus. They're not going to be these fleshed out, complex characters. I think they're going to be one note, one dimensional, and they might even serve as comic relief in this series. Those are my theories for this upcoming episode of Better Call Saul, and I anticipate that many of them are going to be wrong, if not all, because the writers of this series have done such a great job of subverting expectations in the most magnificent ways possible. So let me know your theories down in the comments, and thanks so much for watching. I'll see you after this episode airs.